Good afternoon, everybody. I'm your host, Crystal. This is another edition of the 9 o'clock Meltdown podcast. And over speakerphone, I have the wonderfully and extremely talented photographer, Ryan Tischer, who also owns Tischer Gallery in Canal Park. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. And now, Ryan, you've been doing photography for quite a while. You've made an extensive career out of it. It's absolutely fabulous. And you have a beautiful space open in Canal Park here in Duluth, Minnesota.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, fabulous. Let's dive right into it, Ryan. Why photography? What got you interested? And kind of what culminated and brought you to opening your own gallery?
Sure. Well, let's see. I'll start from the start. I started getting interested in photography when I was in high school, basically shooting a little bit of sports stuff for the yearbook, things like that. We had a dark room at my high school where I first learned to do some darkroom printing. But at the same time, this was 2004-ish. Digital was really starting to come into its own. And so after I graduated high school, went to college, and I started to find that the type of photography I liked to do the most was landscape and nature photography. And during college, I also tried doing a couple of little art shows, little art fairs, and I found that people would buy my work. I found that I could do better with that than a minimum wage job, so I decided to keep doing that. And then when it came time I was graduating college, I'd done a number of art shows and had some success. And I decided instead of looking for a job, I would give, doing the festival circuit, as they call it, a go. Mm-hmm. And so I did that, and I never really looked back.
Wow. Very cool, Ryan. So
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Crystal.
No, by all means.
So then, let's see, where was I at? I was talking about college. Okay, yeah. So that was 2000. I graduated in the fall of 2007, and so 2008 was the year I started doing my photography and selling it at shows full time, which was a terrible year to be selling luxury items to the middle class. But I learned to work really hard. I kept at it. I was persistent, stubborn, you could say. After a number of years of doing that, every year the business grew a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then, the year I had been thinking about opening a gallery for a while. And to kind of get my feet wet, I did the pop-up storefront thing that downtown Duluth had for a number of years.
Okay.
And I did the pop-up thing a couple times and found a location that I liked. And I decided if the right space came open, I would open a gallery. Actually, the same spot that I did my pop-up in came available a couple of years later, and so I snatched it up and did 3 years at that downtown at that gallery. And then last fall, I noticed there was a vacancy in Canal Park, and I knew if I wanted to grow my business, I needed more foot traffic, and it just there wasn't enough foot traffic downtown, and there wasn't not enough tourists, not the right clientele for what I need to sell my art. So when my lease was up downtown, I signed a lease for Canal Park and, did some work on the space and moved the gallery over, and things are going really, really well here. We're very busy. Now I have, I think it's 6 or 7 employees, and one of them's even full-time. So
excellent.
Things have been going well.
Great. And now, Ryan, I've been in your space down in Canal Park. You've got it set up absolutely beautifully, and you've got these massive prints of trees or the night sky or the fall colors, or I think there's one of the lighthouse that's almost floor to ceiling big, but you actually do all that printing in-house.
We do, and that's the unique thing about our gallery. There are very few other galleries that produce the artwork where they sell it. The reason for that, basically, if you're able to produce your own artwork, you keep complete creative control over it, and you can have very high standards. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you're using a lab, almost everybody I've talked to that uses labs the issue is inconsistency, and of course the cost is a lot higher too. And so make selling my artwork actually profitable I've got a lot invested into equipment, as well as knowledge and in people who have knowledge to operate the equipment and make the art. And so that's something, I've been making my own art since basically the very beginning. It's just grown in the, selections of presentations and the framing and all that. But pretty early on, I realized that if I was going to make a full-time go of this and I actually wanted to make enough money for a living, I needed to be making my own art.
Yeah, keep all those kind of business costs in-house.
Exactly.
And Ryan, something kind of unique about your studio as well. I mean, you guys do everything from the prints to the framing to even custom works as well. I think when I was there was some prints on metal sheeting, I think. And then you've got canvas frames and almost everything under the sun. Now, is that kind of more unique style just a niche that you found that sells really well? Or is that something that you've always kind of chased after? Something a little bit different than, oh, here's a picture in a picture frame?
Sure. Well, what sells and what's hot and what's not kind of changes with time. It is decorating. It's a piece of art. It's more than just a decoration, but it does fall into that category. And so when I first started off in 2008, I was selling primarily framed prints, traditionally framed prints. And then I started to offer some canvas gallery wraps, and those sold really well and kind of took over. And then, the year was 2017 when I started doing metal, because metal was the new hot thing, and it still is pretty hot. And that's probably, over half of what we sell is on metal. And that process is more complicated and more frustrating just because it's a lamination process. And when I'll put it this way, there aren't a ton of small businesses where one speck of dust can cost them a couple $100. And so it can kind of be a fickle process, but, we're getting better at it all the time. And we have really high standards. So there are some pieces that don't quite make the cut. And when that happens, then we either totally redo the piece, or if it's a minor flaw, we set it aside and we save it for our display piece clearance sale, or you could call it a second sale. Things that are not quite up to the standard, but we're okay selling them at a discount.
Gotcha. Yeah. And Ryan, like I said earlier, your gallery is absolutely beautiful. And your artwork is absolutely beautiful too. And something you had mentioned earlier in the interview, you said that you really got into landscape photography. And, I myself am a photographer as well. I mainly do people. And that's...
Sure.
It's a completely different animal, almost, to do landscape versus people. What kind of hit your trigger with the landscape versus doing grad photos or even being a wedding photographer?
Well, I did do a little bit of that stuff when I was very, very first starting out. I shot a couple of grads, and I shot, it was 2 weddings, and I just don't like people that much. So, and it just wasn't what I felt passionate about. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I like being out in nature. To me, it what's the word I'm looking for? It refreshes me, it recharges me to just be out, amongst the trees and streams and lakes and the wildlife and just waiting and hoping to see that magical light that'll make the image unique. And so that's just, I've always liked the outdoors. It's how I was raised, a lot of camping and fishing trips. And so this is kind of a way to make a living doing what I like to do. Unfortunately, probably 5% of my time gets spent actually taking pictures, and the rest is all running a small business and answering emails and stuff like that.
Yes, the other side of the business side of things. Actually, Ryan, let's jump into that a little bit. And now, usually when people hear of a small business, they think, somebody that's doing something on the weekends, or, testing out the waters, seeing how this endeavor is going to go, or it's something extremely part-time for them. You've made it a full-time gig, a full-time go, and to your comment earlier, 5% of your time is done making the art, and the rest is selling and catering to the audience that's there. What does a regular day look like for you?
Well, let's see. I roll into work, and if I'm not the first one there, usually I'm inundated with questions about this and that. And so immediately my head starts spinning. And let's say it's a Monday, then I look at everything that's sold on the weekend. And usually the first thing I do is start printing out the orders. So printing out canvas and printing out metal, and start to make, lists for what frames need to be made, answering some emails, things like that. And then, the nice thing now is that the business has grown to the point where I can have people do most of the mounting and framing for me. And frankly, there's no way I would have time to do that anyway. So I don't really have a choice unless I clone myself. But so that's how the day starts out, and usually spend some time signing some things, just a variety of things, answering emails and taking out the trash. There's nothing I'm above doing. Like, I think most small business owners, sometimes you're the CEO and sometimes you're the janitor.
Right. I've heard that one before. Definitely. But Ryan, it sounds like your business is expanding and it's growing exponentially. And like I said, when I stopped in earlier this year, you had quite a few people come through the door, asking you questions, asking about your photography, what you did to get this lighting. So it's almost like you're a salesman of your own work as well.
Oh, absolutely. Doing art festivals for 15 years, you learn to either be a salesperson or you don't do well. You have to have enough of that personality to where you can talk to people and find their needs, what they want, and help narrow things down and then be able to close the sale. So I've spent way more time as a salesperson than I have as a photographer, which is kind of funny. But, as the business has continued to grow, one of my goals is I don't want to be totally hands off with the gallery, but I would rather work, just a day or two a week here, and then actually have time to go out and pursue more images and travel a little bit more and work on the actual art side of things versus the business side of things.
Well, Ryan, as I see it, that's not too far off for you.
By 40 is what I'm hoping. I want to be partially retired by 40.
Hey, that's a great goal.
It's a lofty goal, and I'll try for it. So
no, you'll get there. I, on the other hand, will be working until I'm 80. So, there's that too. Let's jump back a little bit. So where is your main kind of hub of your photography? Now, you're located here in Duluth. Your gallery is down in Canal Park in Duluth, Minnesota here. Do you just kind of go around the local area and take your images, or do you embark to the hills of Montana and the seaside and things like that? I mean, where do your ventures take you?
Yes and yes. Primarily, most of my photography is in this area. I love living here. It's a beautiful area. I feel a connection to just the land, the land, the sky. What is this area? I feel a connection to it, because I grew up here, and there are a lot of places I think are special here. But sometimes, usually in the dead of winter, I feel like going other places too and exploring new areas. And so I've been kind of all over the West. I've been to California quite a few times, Pacific Northwest, Tetons, Florida, and I've also been to Iceland too. And so it's nice to be able to experience new areas and, the challenges that come with photographing those new places too. So I do both, but primarily this area. And that's both because it's special to me, but also because, of course, that work tends to sell better too.
Right. Especially if you're kind of hitting the tourist kind of trade. People want to take something back with them, especially if they've seen the big lake or have been up to Split Rock Lighthouse and et cetera, et cetera.
Yep, and that's our motto. Our trademark motto is take a piece of the North Shore home.
I love it.
So that's, kind of has a double meaning there. But what I've found is when people buy at least landscape and nature photography, Most of the time they like to have something that's a place they've been or a place that they feel like they've been. People need to feel that emotional connection to the art. And since we're in Duluth, which is kind of the gateway to the entire North Shore and the Boundary Waters, this is the ideal place to sell that work.
Right. Ryan, it definitely sounds like you've really hit it off with your audience and you know them quite well.
Well, it's, learn and adjust or find something else to make a living at, you have to be able to learn from mistakes and make good business decisions in addition to making art that people want to pay you to have.
Mm-hmm. Right. And to that comment, Ryan, it kind of sounds like you have made some mistakes throughout your years as well, but that's all part of the learning process.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many countless pieces of art I've screwed up.
No.
You just learn from your mistakes and keep going and try not to make the same ones twice.
Right. Wise words, sir. Very wise words. Now, Ryan, let's jump back a little bit. You had mentioned that you kind of started out in the festival circuit. Now, is that more kind of like art festivals? Are we talking, music festivals? What kind of festivals did you go to?
Sure. Primarily juried art festivals.
Okay.
Art shows, art fairs, everyone kind of has a little bit different name to it. Once in a while, I've also done some craft shows that are less artsy, and some of those I've had success at too, but not really music festivals or anything like that. The thing about an art festival is that I don't know of a better way to get your art in front of a lot of people in a short amount of time than an art fair or art festival. The downside is that they are an immense amount of work. A lot of people think that the artist just shows up and the tent is there and the art's already, then they just sell. Well, that's not the case. Sometimes us artists, we drive across the whole country to get to a show, if it's a good enough show. And then you have to set up your booth. In my case, that takes about 4 hours. And then after you've set up your booth, you have to interact with the public and, do your salesperson spiel and all that. And then you got to tear it down, load it back into your vehicle and drive home. And I don't know, I estimate I've probably done somewhere in the ballpark of 250 art fairs, art festivals in my life. And I may have done my last one last weekend.
Okay.
So,
why do you say that?
It's gotten to the point where the business has grown. And frankly, I've been burned out on them for years.
Oh.
There's so much work. And now I can just sell it in the gallery and not have to go to other areas. People can now come to me.
Right. And Ryan, you also have a wonderful website as well that people can see your work at. Mm-hmm. Can people do ordering online as well?
They do, yeah. I do sell some art off the website. Yeah, web sales tend to be a little bit harder because art is one of those things where people really prefer to see it in person, to truly get a feel for it. But a lot of times people will see it in person at a show or in the gallery and they're not ready to buy just yet. They got to go home, they have to measure or, get permission from their spouse or whatever it is. And then a lot of times they'll call in later or order it off the website.
And now, Ryan, Tischer Gallery is not above mailing pieces out to people. You don't really have a cap on that. I think when I was there, you had some pretty large pieces that were going out, and I think were also going across country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we ship, I would say about half of the artwork we sell is something we ship. And that's because there are a lot of images. There are a lot of different sizes and a lot of different framing options, and people want to be able to exactly what's right for them. Right. And so every single one of those sizes and whatever I don't even know, there'd be thousands and thousands of pieces we'd have to have in storage. So, and that's just not, that's not doable. So we take custom orders and then we fill them. And if they're local, they pick them up, or we can ship them basically anywhere. And yeah, like about half of our business is things that aren't bought off the wall. They're things that are ordered and then shipped or picked up later.
Wonderful, Ryan. Absolutely wonderful to hear. Ryan, let me ask you something from an artist, but also business standpoint as well. Something that I've struggled with, and I know other artists have struggled with as well. How do you price your art?
Yep. That's a hard one. It
It
is.
is. It is.
It's a little, I think it's maybe a little bit easier for me because there are other photographers out there doing, not work exactly like mine, but they're also selling landscape nature photography, especially at art
Right.
festivals. It's probably the most, popular genre, if you will, of photographers at art shows. And so you just kind of, it's like a market thing. You have to look, what's my cost to produce this? Okay. And then what will the market bear? What are other people selling it for? And, is your work quality wise and material wise, inspiration wise on par with that? And, then you have to figure out your pricing. That is always one of the hardest things for artists to do. So I guess just experience and just having a feel for what they'll sell for and what they won't.
Right. And Ryan, it sounds like you've got quite a bit of experience under your belt.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've sold a lot of art. So
Absolutely wonderful to hear, Ryan. Absolutely wonderful. Ryan Tischer of Tischer Gallery, you're a nature and landscape photographer. You have now blossomed this passion into a full-time gig, into an absolute beautiful gallery that's located down in Canal Park. And you've got a website as well. It's just tischergallery.com, correct?
that's correct. Yep.
All right,
Tischer,
excellent.
Tischer spelled Tischer. Gallery.com.
All right, wonderful, Ryan. And Ryan, if somebody's interested in getting a hold of you, maybe to come out and take some pictures for them, not necessarily people-wise, but maybe they have a great barn or something that they want to get pictures taken of. Do you do any of that?
I don't. No, I don't do any sort of commission or commercial work or work on request. It would just be, I would have to charge too much. And I don't really want to do it either, is the other thing. It's the thing about getting a high quality landscape nature image is that you are more or less at the mercy of the weather, the time of year, conditions, everything. And so say if somebody wanted me to take a picture from the dock at their cabin, I would have to come back quite a few different times to try and get an inspirational image. And I just don't want to do that really. And I'm busy enough selling the things that are already, part of my vision, what I've created. So that's kind of the way that I do things. I'm sure there are other photographers out there that will do more, commercial sort of work, but it's not really in my strike zone.
No, it sounds like you've definitely found your niche and really carved out your stake in the photography world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've worked really hard for over 15 years. And, when you do that, then hopefully there's some fruits from your labor.
Of course. And Ryan, it definitely sounds like there have been multiple fruits for your labor. It's absolutely fabulous to talk to you. I guess something that you said a little earlier, that when you go out and you have an image in mind, you actually go back and retake that image multiple times. I know from my personal experience, like I said, I mainly do people. So I get taking multiple images, but I don't necessarily go back and try to take some pictures. Something that you commented on earlier, you're at the mercy of the weather and the wind and everything else going on that day. Has there ever been an image that you've just snapped in the moment and that's it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, once in a while you get lucky. But, most of the time it's planned. It's something I've researched the location or I've discovered it out on a hike or something like that. A lot of times I'll go out and I'll just scout locations and I won't even necessarily have my camera with me. If I know it's a time of day or conditions that aren't going to make a good image, why carry a 40-pound camera bag on your back while you're doing it? Yeah, you find the spot, you find a composition you like, and then it's a matter of just coming back at a time that is the, best likelihood of some unique, interesting light or conditions or whatever it is you're looking for. And you just keep doing it again and again and again until something magical happens. And so there are some places I've gone there 20 times and finally got an image that I felt was, inspiring. Once in a while, I'll just randomly show up and the light will be there and everything will work out. But most of the time I'm not that lucky.
Gotcha. Yes, very true. I can attest to that myself, just kind of dabbling in different photography and different lights and ways to do things. So I definitely understand. I feel your pain.
Yep. And you know what? It's standing, sitting or standing out in nature, just with your thoughts or whatever. It's not the worst thing in the world. I do enjoy it. Maybe not if it's 20-mile-an-hour winds, 40 degrees, and sideways rain. Then maybe not. But
Yep.
most of the time I enjoy that part of it too.
Right. And that's what I was getting at, standing in the freezing cold winters up here, waiting for the northern lights to show up, could get a little painful.
Yep. Literally.
Yes, literally and figuratively. Ryan, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with me and the wider world about your art, your gallery, and what inspires you to do what you do, sir.
Well, thank you. It was an honor to be on your podcast, Crystal, and I appreciate you asking me all these questions.
Of course. Ryan Tischer of Tischer Gallery and Tischer Photography as well. You can check out his website, tischergallery.com, or stop in his shop down at Canal Park. Ryan, thank you so much. Have a absolute beautiful day.
All right. Same to you, Crystal.
Thank you. Bye.